There are few cases in Germany in recent years that have touched and moved as many people as the disappearance of Scarlett S. Scarlett was 26 years old when she set out on a hike in the Black Forest. She had previously traveled to distant countries and had even journeyed alone all the way to Asia. Yet it was in the Black Forest, of all places, just a few hours from her home, that the young woman disappeared. To this day, it remains completely unclear what happened to her on September 10, 2020. And that must finally change so that her friends and family can get the answer to the most pressing question of all. Where is Scarlett? Scarlett S. was born in September 1993 and grew up in Paderborn with her sister, who is 2 years older. Her sister lives with their parents in a semi-detached house. After finishing school, Scarlett completed an apprenticeship in Social Security. She then returned to school to earn her high school diploma in 2015. But she's not just hardworking, she also loves to travel. As a young woman, Scarlett has already seen quite a bit of the world. Finland, Myanmar, Russia, Iceland, Israel, the Czech Republic, Indonesia. These are just a few of the countries she's visited. She also enjoys traveling alone from time to time. The young woman is quite fearless, independent, and freedom-loving. That's why her friends call her Scully, after the agent of the same name from the TV series The X-Files. Scarlett is also an advocate for animal welfare. During her trip to Iceland, she protested against whaling there. In 2019, Scarlett traveled to Asia. She planned to spend about a year traveling across the continent. Shortly after arriving in Myanmar, she meets her boyfriend Joey there. He is actually from China, but is in Myanmar for work. As a local, he knows his way around well and is, of course, a great travel companion. In photos of them together, it's clear how comfortable the two are with each other and how much fun they're having on their trip. But like many travelers, Scarlett had to cut her trip short in March 2020, so she returns home alone. She is now in a long-distance relationship with Joey between Germany and China. She's using her free time to learn his language and hopes to see him again soon. Despite the distance, Joey is the love of her life. She's toying with the idea of starting a family with him someday and even moving to Asia. She speaks English fluently and could theoretically work as an English teacher in China even without a degree. But there are also plenty of wonderful opportunities to explore nature in Europe for now. Scarlett takes advantage of one very special one in July 2020 together with her mother. The two of them walk the Camino de Santiago, 6 weeks. Nearly 800 kilometers. During the trip, Scarlett meets a young man who raves about the Black Forest. He tells her that the Schluchtensteig trail there is a fantastic hiking route. She and the man exchange phone numbers and agree to hike the Schluchtensteig together sometime. But first, she and her mother have the Camino de Santiago ahead of them. Someday, when travel is no longer restricted, Scarlett and her mother want to fly to Peru and hike the Inca Trail there. She can't get the Black Forest out of her head. It seems like the perfect opportunity to experience a little adventure within Germany. So Scarlett plans a 6-day hiking tour for early September 2020. The man who recommended the hiking route on the Camino de Santiago actually wants to come along, but then cancels at the last minute. He has fallen ill and suggests postponing the hike by a week or two. But Scarlett doesn't want to wait that long. Her father, Ralph, once said in an interview that when Scarlett sets her mind on something, she sees it through. Someone like Scarlett, who has already traveled all the way to Asia alone, probably isn't afraid of a trip within her own country. So she gives her mother the keys to her apartment so she can take care of the cats, Simba and Tommy. And then, everything is basically set. When it comes to lodging, the young woman is pragmatic. She's content with simple accommodations or her gray two-person tent. So she's ready to set off on September 4th, on a journey from which Scarlet will never return. In the case of Scarlet S, there are several witness statements and cell phone records that could be analyzed. As a result, it was possible to reconstruct her journey up until her disappearance fairly accurately. There are many German place names, but some familiarity with the area is important to be able to follow what happened to some extent. With the help of a map of the area, we will hopefully gain some clarity. The Schluchtensteig in the Black Forest is a long-distance hiking trail totaling 119 kilometers. It is divided into 6 stages. It leads from the town of Stühlingen via Blumberg, Schattenmühle, Fischbach, St. Blasien, and Todmus to Wehr, where the trail ends. After finishing her hike along the Schluchtensteig, Scarlet wants to continue on to Mainz to visit her friend Vanessa. The two have been friends since childhood, but, as is often the case in adulthood when you live far apart, they see each other far too rarely. The 26-year-old has carefully studied and planned the route. She's also acquired suitable new gear, including a sleeping bag and tent. On September 4th, Scarlet drives her black Peugeot from Bad Lippspringe to Stühlingen. She picked up 2 women through the carpooling service. In case you're not familiar with it, carpooling services, as the name suggests, are organizations that arrange ride shares. One party gets from A to B hassle-free, and the other party gets some gas money. Scarlet and her 2 passengers arrive at a parking lot. From there, Scarlet sends her mom a voice message after dropping off her passengers.
So, ich habe ja 2 Leute von BlaBlaCar mitgenommen und das war richtig super. Die eine ist wirklich das ganze Stück gefahren, also von mir zu Hause bis hier nach unten hin. Und die war so cool, die war 56, also so dein Alter. Also die war so lustig und gut drauf und der Sohn hat sie dann hier abgeholt. Der Sohn wird hier, oh mein Gott, sah der so gut aus. Und der Sohn heißt Silvester, also auch so ein richtig schöner Name. Und ja, also die Fahrt war echt... Deswegen, die war richtig super. Ich glaube, das mache ich immer. Also ich bin froh, so, dass ich nicht allein gefahren bin. Das war so ein bisschen lustiger und die Zeit verging schneller.
Scarlet sounds completely carefree in the audio clip. She mentions that one of the other passengers was her mother's age and that a young guy, who was quite handsome, picked up her son. Scarlet spends the night of September 4th to 5th at the An der Wutach campground near the parking lot where she arrived. In another voice message, Scarlet says she arrived safely and is feeling comfortable there. She also seems to have already made contact with a few of the long-term campers who live on the site. A Swiss couple offers to let Scarlet sleep in their awning if it gets too cold in her own tent, and to let her charge her phone there. They even ask if Scarlet has the right gear for her hiking trip. As so often on her travels, she seems to have met some truly kind people in the Black Forest. The next morning, Scarlet sets off with a backpack and walks the first stage. Along the way, she is also spotted by a few other hikers who will later remember the young woman with the big red backpack. According to the Schluchtensteig website, this section takes about 5.5 hours. After the second stage, on September 6th, Scarlet meets 3 men. Since she gets along well with the group, the 4 decide to set up camp together for the night. They spend the night in a former outdoor swimming pool. The Guschweil outdoor pool is a so-called lost place, entered at one's own risk. In an audio message to her parents, Scarlet says she probably wouldn't have done that alone, but she seems to have felt safe in the group with the 3 men. On the morning of September 7th, the 3 hikers part ways with Scarlet again, and each goes their separate way. On the evening of September 7th, Scarlet visits a pub in Schluchsee. As far as we know, Scarlet's hike continues as normal. The next day, she hikes from Schluchsee to St. Blasien. This is the 4th stage of the route. However, she does not spend the night in St. Blasien from September 8th to 9th. Instead, she takes a bus to Todmus. That's actually the next destination on the route, but the area has a fairly good bus network, so it's easy to travel back and forth between the hubs. So, from September 8th to 9th, Scarlett stays overnight in Todmus at a lodging. In the morning, she takes the bus back to St. Blasien. On September 9th, Scarlett sends a few more photos from St. Blasien to her family. She arrives back in Todmus on foot in the afternoon or evening. There, she visits an Asian restaurant in the evening, and as luck would have it, she runs into the 3 hikers from the second leg of the route again. The 4 of them eat together and spend a relaxing evening together. While they're eating, they snap this selfie of the 4 of them. Scarlett also catches the eye of the other guests in the restaurant because she's beaming so brightly, and rightly so. By this point, she has successfully completed 5 of the 6 stages of the Schluchtensteig. Now only the final section of the trail remains. Scarlett isn't camping that evening either. Instead, she's staying at the hiking lodge in Todmus. The lodge owners don't notice anything concerning. Scarlett seems to be looking forward to the final stage of the trail. From the lodge, she checks in with her friend Vanessa around 9 p.m. Scarlett writes that she'll check in once she's finished and on her way. She also texts her mother about this plan. After visiting Vanessa, she'll likely return on Sunday, September 13th. Now we come to the most important day in this case. On the morning of September 10th, Scarlett replies to a message from her friend Vanessa. Vanessa had written that she was looking forward to seeing her again. Scarlett replies with, "Me too." At the Kirchberghütte, she pays her bill and says goodbye to the staff. She buys a few snacks at the supermarket for the upcoming hike. Scarlett is there from 10:08 a.m. to 10:14 a.m. From the store, she then sets off toward the Schluchtensteig trail. According to Google GPS, she passes the Kurpark in Todmus. Her phone is logged in there for about half an hour, according to Google. Scarlett takes a short break there before setting off. From there, Scarlett FaceTimes with her boyfriend Joey in China. He is the last person to hear from the young woman. Joey tells the police that Scarlett seemed somewhat downcast, noticeably frantic and unfocused. However, the connection isn't particularly good either, since Scarlett is using public Wi-Fi for the video call. Plus, it's already approaching noon, and Scarlett has another 22 kilometers ahead of her that day. At an average hiking pace, she could cover the distance in about 7.5 hours. Scarlett promises Joey she'll call him again later. After the brief call, she texts him again. "Miss you too, honey." That is her last message. In Mainz, Scarlett's friend Vanessa waits in vain for the 26-year-old. She sends her messages at 5 p.m. but receives no reply. So, around 7 p.m., Vanessa calls Scarlett's sister. Vanessa asks if she or the parents know exactly when Scarlett plans to arrive in Mainz. Scarlett's father then tries to reach his daughter on her cell phone. Just like Vanessa, he can't reach her. Throughout the evening and night, numerous friends and family members try in vain to call Scarlett. Her parents are very worried, but try to stay rational. Especially on such a long hiking route, a cell phone can run out of battery, or you might simply have no signal. But soon, the family begins to suspect that something else is behind the radio silence. On the morning of September 11th, Scarlett S is reported missing in Paderborn, and this missing persons report remains active to this day. The day after Scarlett was reported missing, her parents drove straight to the Black Forest. As soon as they entered the area, they encountered mountain rescue teams who were searching for Scarlett. Scarlett's father, Ralph, later recalled that there were about 200 people at the community center when they arrived, so the search was taken very seriously right from the start. Scarlett's parents themselves cannot participate in the search. That could confuse the search dogs and lead them down the wrong trail. As hard as it is for them, Scarlett's mother and father must wait off the hiking trails for news. Unfortunately, that news never comes. On September 13th and 14th, a large-scale search operation takes place. Several fire departments, a search and rescue dog unit with 35 dogs, 2 mountain rescue teams, a police helicopter, thermal imaging cameras, and a drone are deployed. Furthermore, the police are deploying a helicopter equipped with a device that can simulate a cellular network. This allows them to check whether a cell phone in the search area logs into this simulated network. But that doesn't happen. The police leave almost no stone unturned, and even follow up on unconventional leads. When a psychic comes forward on September 14th and tells the police to search the Duxburg, the lead is taken seriously and investigated. Scarlett's social circle is also interviewed, and her apartment back home is searched. And of course, tips from the public are also followed up on. On September 19th, the police search the area between Todmus and Wehr, focusing on 2 challenging steep sections. Using a drone, they can inspect rocky sections that are inaccessible from the ground. But there is no sign of Scarlett anywhere. The police receive a tip that initially seems very promising. It does not refer to a sighting of Scarlett, but to a possible phone call. According to the tip, on the morning of September 10th, the morning of Scarlett's disappearance, a call was received at a campground near the Schluchtensteig trail. A young woman's voice is said to have called to ask if there was still a campsite available for the coming night. She said she was traveling alone, would be coming with only a small tent, and wanted to know if she needed to make a reservation in advance. She was told over the phone that this was no problem. She could simply show up without a reservation. Scarlett's father thinks it's possible that the caller was his daughter. It would only be logical that, after a 6-day hike totaling 120 kilometers, Scarlett would want to rest somewhere for one more night before driving 3 to 4 hours to Mainz. However, the police were never able to link the call at the campground to Scarlett. Whether she was the caller is unknown. Unfortunately, this lead comes to nothing, just like every other one. Despite intensive efforts, Scarlet S remains missing. Another search involving a helicopter takes place in November. By this point, 10 weeks have already passed since Scarlett's disappearance. This time, the search focuses on hard-to-reach areas in the Werra Valley. Unfortunately, this effort also concludes without any results. Scarlett was seen carrying a distinctive red Osprey trekking backpack. Scarlett had gone hiking several times before, including alone, and is well equipped accordingly. The only new thing this time is that she has a tent with her for the first time, but nothing is found. Not Scarlett herself, not her backpack, not her sleeping pad. Despite everything, the police assume an accident, not a crime. Search efforts were essentially exhausted by 2020. That is why, since then, it has primarily been privately organized search groups combing the Black Forest for the missing Scarlett. In September 2021, things change a bit again. A death investigation is initiated after a report was filed with the Criminal Investigation Department in Paderborn the previous month. It is said to have been an anonymous tip suggesting that Scarlett may have been the victim of a violent crime. However, in the course of this renewed investigation, there are no indications of a violent crime. Nevertheless, in June 2022, the police in charge appeal for help with the case in a television segment. More than 140 tips are received, which is a really good response rate for the program. The new tips primarily concern possible sightings of Scarlett in the area around Wehr and Todmus. However, there is no hot lead among them. Instead, something important happens independently of this at the end of July 2022. A hiker finds a pair of sunglasses slightly off the trail on the final stage of the Schluchtensteig. They are very likely an identical model to the ones Scarlett was last seen wearing. The frame color, the tint of the lenses, everything matches. As a result, the area is searched again. Unfortunately, again without success. Meanwhile, the sunglasses are sent to the forensic lab for DNA analysis, though without a conclusive result. It is quite possible that the sunglasses had been lying on the trail for a long time and that any DNA had therefore been worn away. So, theoretically, it is possible that the sunglasses really did belong to Scarlett, since she had already been missing for nearly 2 years at that point. So the question remains, what happened to Scarlett S? In February 2023, the homicide investigation into Scarlett's case is closed, and it is reclassified as a missing persons case. Based on the available information, the police continue to believe that Scarlett likely met with an accident while hiking. Almost always, when an adult goes missing, the possibility of a voluntary disappearance must be considered. Even if, as a viewer, you're often sitting at home and can't quite wrap your head around it. But there are actually some adults who simply want to get away and don't want to be found. In Scarlett's case too, there's speculation that she might have wanted to return to China to see her boyfriend Joey again. But Scarlett didn't have the necessary documents with her. Moreover, a trip to China from Germany in September 2020 was hardly conceivable anyway due to the global situation. And Scarlett had promised her friend Vanessa that she would visit her in Mainz, and confirmed this again the night before. Surely it would be comforting to imagine that Scarlett has traveled somewhere where she is now living her life and pursuing her dreams. But unfortunately, given the circumstances, that seems highly unlikely. As mentioned, even after the police investigation, a private search team is still on the case. The search group is proceeding very strategically, and they have been doing so for 5 years now. Those involved are also in contact with Scarlett's family, who have repeatedly emphasized how much the searchers' work means to them. The area around the Schluchtensteig has been, and continues to be, systematically combed by the volunteers. Every section that has already been searched is stored in a GPS database. As a result, the searchers are now very familiar with the Schluchtensteig. Some members of the group, such as a man named Andreas, consider an accident involving Scarlett unlikely for precisely this reason. Andreas reports in an interview that there are only a few places where someone could fall on the final stretch of the trail, and those that do exist have all already been meticulously searched. For a video on a YouTube channel, one of the mountaineers who helped develop the trail was interviewed. He explains that about 80,000 people hike the trail each year. During that time, there are about 15 to 20 accidents annually. This includes minor incidents like muscle strains or small falls, but also far more serious accidents. In 2014, a 65-year-old man fell to his death there. In 2019, a 59-year-old woman. The expert also admits that it can sometimes take up to 6 months to find a person who has had an accident in the area. But they've been searching for Scarlett for more than 5 years now. Scarlett is quite athletic and knows her way around hiking. Sure, anything can still happen, but how likely is that in this particular case? The trail's developer doesn't consider the 6th stage, which Scarlett intended to tackle, to be the most difficult part of the trail. There is no immediate risk of falling there, so it's understandable that there's room for other theories as well. What's particularly significant here is a very specific witness statement. 2 days after Scarlett's disappearance, a woman contacted the police. The witness says she saw Scarlett on September 10th in a parking lot between Todmus and Ver, or at least a young blonde woman who looked like Scarlett. According to the witness, the woman was sitting on a rock in the parking lot and apparently taking a break. The witness describes that the young woman had spread a turquoise towel on the rock to sit on, and Scarlett actually had exactly that kind of towel with her. If this sighting is accurate, it would mean for the first time that we can actually assume Scarlett did indeed set out on the 6th leg between Todmus and Ver. The private search group I mentioned earlier has independently organized a private dog team, and indeed, the dogs followed Scarlett's trail from the 6th section starting at Todmoose for a while along the regular hiking trail, up to a parking lot located between Todmoose and the destination in Ver. However, from this parking lot onward, Scarlett's scent is no longer picked up in the direction of the hiking trail. Assuming the dogs reliably followed Scarlett's trail, this leaves two possibilities. Either Scarlett turned back from there and retraced her steps, or she continued on by vehicle. However, the witness appears to be the only person who claims to have seen Scarlett. As far as is known, no witness has come forward who actually saw her on the hiking trail on September 10th, and the Mountain Rescue Service considers this unusual. The weather was good, and it was one of the last nice summer days, so there were quite a few hikers out and about. So could something have happened to Scarlett at that parking lot? In an interview, her father says that Scarlett was quick to make new friends, and that she therefore also trusted other people easily. All the people Scarlett came into contact with on her hike were interviewed by the police. This includes the 3 hikers she met on the second leg of the trail, but none of these interviews yielded any new leads. According to the police, no suspicion of wrongdoing has been substantiated against any of the 3 men. Not even against the man Scarlett met on the Camino de Santiago and with whom she originally planned to hike. No matter where Scarlett was, there are no traces of a struggle or any other crime that would help the police make progress. But perhaps Scarlett also met someone else whose identity is still unknown. All considerations, aside from the accident theory, inevitably lead back to the testimony of the woman who claims to have seen Scarlett in the parking lot. Did Scarlett simply take a break there? Was she perhaps waiting for someone? From there, she only had about 3 hours of hiking left to her destination, but perhaps she decided, for some reason, not to continue the hike. In that case, the parking lot would actually be a suitable place to stop, because a bus departs regularly from a nearby stop. Actually, because on September 10th, 2020, of all days, this bus service was canceled due to a road closure. So if Scarlett had wanted to leave from there, for whatever reason, she would have needed a ride. That seems to be the key to solving this, because if Scarlett really did get into a car, she could, of course, be anywhere. That's why it's worth keeping your eyes open everywhere, especially for Scarlett's hiking gear, which also hasn't been found to this day. For Scarlett's father, Ralph, one thing is certain. He will continue searching for his daughter and will not give up. There is no place in the world he wouldn't go if he saw a clue that he might find Scarlett there, or the person who may be responsible for her disappearance. He puts it better in an interview than I ever could.
I just want to find her and get to the bottom of what happened to her. I can't accept that my daughter has disappeared and no one has heard anything from her. A child shouldn't just become a memory. That's wrong.
Scarlett S is still missing today. She was 26 years old at the time of her disappearance on September 10th, 2020. She is 5 feet 3 inches tall, has a slender build, long blonde hair, and blue eyes. She was last seen wearing shorts and a black long-sleeved top. She was also wearing size 36 hiking boots. The distinctive red backpack Scarlett was carrying has also not been found yet. The backpack has a plastic tag shaped like a yellow heart. A silver-colored sleeping pad was also strapped to it. It's always difficult to find the right closing words for such unsolved cases. I just hope that this video might somehow help in taking a fresh look at the case. It's never too late to contact the police with a tip or an observation. I'm absolutely certain that no one would be angry or blame you if you were to come forward with a tip only now. Because the main thing
is simply that Scarlett's family and friends find out what happened to her. Her father, Ralph, has given numerous interviews over the past few years. If you watch even one of them, you'll see just how deeply Scarlett is loved and missed. I have immense respect for him and for the rest of Scarlett's family and circle of friends, who continue to search for her both publicly and behind the scenes. I wish them all the best, and above all, that this case is finally solved. More than 5 years have now passed since Scarlett's disappearance. Please share this video no matter where you live. You never know who might have seen or heard something. And feel free to support the video with a comment or a like. The more interaction the video gets, the more often it will be recommended to other users. And that's especially important for missing persons cases that are still active. As I said, I really hope that someday, somehow, someone will be able to provide the crucial clue. Until then, I want to thank you for watching and for your support. Other than that, there isn't much more to say. I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever time you're watching this. And I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye everyone.